welcome everyone to our Technology Enablement Series, the Tech in 20. And today we're going to be talking about application lifestyle, or not lifestyle, application lifecycle management. And we're going to be talking about this, and we've got Milt Huston on with us to talk about it. And as you can see, we've got a poll going now about how much do you already know about this, and so you can answer that, text your answers to 22333 or out at pollev.com/tech20, and we'll be able to get this feedback and see this feedback live. Also, we're going to be having a question and answer session at the end, but we may also have some questions in the middle, so you can use the chat feature inside of WebEx to send me your questions, and I'll be happy to see if we can get those answered. And so without further ado, we'll turn this over to Milt.
Hi, folks. Glad to be here talking to you today about application lifecycle management, which we'll refer to as ALM throughout the seminar here. Yeah, good to see the broad range of exposure here. It really looks like most folks are occasionals. Some people not at all. You know, a fair piece are frequently exposed to ALM, so that's good to know. I think we'll find that this is really blossoming into a significant space, if you will, technology space, that is slated to grow quite a bit more in the future. So I guess I want to start with really what is application lifecycle management, and you know, my view on where did it kind of come from, and what's a reasonable definition. I think as more and more organizations develop more and more software internally, in particular, you know, custom in-house built software, there was a need to manage the demand for this new software and make sure that the development teams had a good understanding of what the business wanted. So that really is what brought ALM, you know, into the IT playing field to begin with. So in my words, it's really about managing software from the inception, from that idea in the business through design, development, test, and that final deployment to production. Really, ALM is all about a traceability matrix for all the activities that are happening in the life cycle. So a good ALM tool can bring together all of these components essentially as one component that you can quickly reference and refer back to, you know, in the present and in the past. So let's look at a few definitions outside of my own. We've got the wiki definition, which really, you know, basically very similar to what I was talking about. It's more focused on governance and the development and maintenance processes. So maintaining that code, developing it, but bringing that governance around all the activities in the life cycle. So we're looking on the right here is really the wiki diagram of ALM, completely product agnostic. You know, we're really not talking about any specific product. It's more of a capability. And at the core is a strong version control engine, something that can manage artifacts and make them available to all the different peripheral components that are required to make up ALM. Well, you know, how do you do that? Workflow is a big requirement. So you want to be able to link those changes to your requirements, to the modeling, design, testing, certainly to the build management, and release management. The key thing is most of these are manual processes in a lot of organizations today. What ALM brings in leverages a great deal of automation to automatically connect and link these relationships. Now, you can certainly pick and choose, do I want to relate this change to this requirement? And a lot of that can be automated as well. The point is, once you've got the link, it's permanent, it's there. Unless you change it, you always have that record, and it's maintained in a database, available to be reported against and audited on, root cause analysis, whatever that may be. Then on the outside of the workflow, if you will, and the different components inside of that, you've got deployments, reporting, and project management. So we always want to be able to report on what's going on in the life cycle, wherever it's happening. And certainly project management is one of the key demand generators for the application life cycle. Now, what I'm really talking about today is software applications. Not that this can't apply to, whether it's network application life cycle management. There are, different ways to apply this, but really the definition comes from the software development business. So as Forrester's Dave West says, if you aren't doing ALM today, you really need to start thinking about it, because you need to have that completely transparent understanding, i.e. traceability matrix for what's going on within the life cycle. You need to sell those changes back to the business. They need to see the value. This will give it to them. All right.
Milt?
Yes, sir.
Milt, I've got a quick question. Can you go back to that previous slide? So if we're doing this, all right, it looks to me as though you've got a whole lot of stuff you have to do in order to make this work. A lot of parts and a lot of moving parts, if you will, right? And what happens if we don't? It seems like this is going to be really costly. What happens if we don't do this?
Well, basically, I think, every organization has a process of some kind to manage something very similar to what we're putting out here. You're going to spend, number one, a lot of money on manpower, on people to do these different features. If you're not linking them together, if you're not providing some holistic communication, now you spend a lot of time chasing, well, what defect, how do we get that defect? What requirement forced that defect? What change in the source code or in the build caused that defect? You've got to go hunting and pecking around for that information. You're wasting a lot of time. It's going to really raise your time to, put things into production. And a lot of organizations, they may be living with problems that they look at as, that familiar misery. Okay, I know that problem. Yeah, I deal with it all the time, but, we got people to deal with that. They get it done. I don't care, right? But when they see what happens when you can deal with that issue and avoid it up front, such as knowing, what build caused that defect and what went into production to cause that defect, then quickly you can realize the, economy of scale of putting together a solution like this. Yes, it's a big effort to build this out up front, but there are tools out there, there are solutions out there that even CA offers that provide most of this functionality out of the box and the integration as well. So.
Okay, thanks.
You bet. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, where ALM's headed and who's who in ALM. So who's really out there today. So if you look at that wiki slide that I had, going to that location, just Google, application lifecycle management, look at the wiki site for that. You'll see a list of all the products that have that support some level of that picture, whether it's requirements, version control, the workflow, build management. Maybe they, encompass a number of those different features. You'll see a fairly large list of products out there, and CA is a big player out there with Software Change Manager, CA Endeavor. Both those products handle those lifecycle critical processes in the life of an application. Now add requirements management from Clarity, Agile and Clarity requirements, add the CA Lisa testing simulation, service virtualization capabilities. You've really got the full end-to-end story right there. our deployment capabilities as well. But you've got IBM with RTC, Serena with Dimensions, HP ALM 11 from HP. And then last but not least, our own partner, Pure SCM, that really is the glue that holds together today our solution that we're selling as ALM, okay, which is Endeavor, SCM, ALM. We could also bring in the other products I was talking about, Clarity and CA Lisa as well. You know, the big picture is getting that quality into the life cycle. That's a win for everybody. But as the message says, what's even worse is how it can hurt you when you don't have it. And a bit on the trends today, the 451 group has an article. It's been out there, I think, probably around 9 months, predicting, you know, a PaaS architecture, platform as a service, going forward for ALM. So it might be picking some Agile management technologies up in the cloud. It might be picking requirements management on-premise, the source code management on-prem, but that can be a hybrid cloud that builds this out as platform as a service. So we want to get your feedback on, you know, where you think ALM is headed in the future.
It's not showing on the screen, but that's okay. It's pushed to them so they can go and if they're on polev.com/tech20, they can still answer it. So
okay.
I don't know why it's not showing, but we can just move on.
All right. All right. Okay. So what does it, you know, really mean for all of us at CA, not just me in that interpretation? You know, everyone's creating software. Even if they're getting third-party applications, they're still managing patches to that software. They may have their own very nice, thank you, very nice drink. You know, everyone's got an app, especially with mobile apps. I mean, you know, people need to build their Android apps, their iPhone apps to support e-commerce. So if we can help that become a better process, then we can bring some true value to the organization. Now, from a real pre-sale sales perspective, this is a great opportunity to leverage, you know, the cross-BU integration capabilities. So where we can have, you know, the service desk tying into Endeavor, our software change manager. We can have Clarity tying in there. We've got Agile Vision, product and, you know, requirements. Oh, there's a new name here. Clarity Agile, Clarity Requirements, tying directly into the SCM system as well as server automation. So ITKO, that can tie in there. We would just feed them the properly built executables. But all this, you know, really gives us that extended capability to really build out the footprint, land and expand, if you will, within our accounts. And yes, I won't forget Process Auto as well. That's the silent partner sitting back there that's, you know, getting it done so well in so many places. But, and I see another one. I'm going to speak to some of these. So CA's play here is ITKO Lisa. Not entirely, but certainly a piece of it is, and it can be a very large piece of it. I think, you know, the CA Lisa folks want to be somewhat thought of as in the service virtualization space. It's not just an ALM tool. You know, they're not trying to really become that. They have a large mission themselves in that area, but it's certainly a component of this piece. And you know, it's one of the best testing suites out there. Hard not to take advantage of that. But
so Milt, where did you get your drapes?
They actually came with the house.
I'm kidding. So I have another question that came in, and the question came in was, can small companies do this too, or is it just a big company thing? I mean, will our smaller customers also have these challenges, or is it just a big company thing?
Well, I would say you're going to see the big companies acquiescing to this type of an approach, but it's certainly not just a big company thing. Actually, smaller companies have much more to risk on not being able to deliver applications on time, chasing bugs, not knowing what they're related to, not having that traceability. They've got to do a lot more with less than what a big company has. So to me, it's just as applicable to them. But you're going to see the bigger companies, wanting to take this on.
So I have another question that came in, and then that was about we hear a lot about Agile now. Are there other methodologies that are coming up that are gaining steam that are going to be popular moving forward? What do you think?
Well, I think Agile is still, quote, becoming popular. I'm not really sure if, like extreme programming, maybe a hybrid of Agile and Waterfall. We at CA have adopted the Agile methodology throughout all of the development teams, at least all that I know of. I'm sure there's a couple out there that maybe still be bucking the tide, but we've found a great deal of success with that, particularly with involving the customers in the Agile process, to let them come in under the Dev Buddy and look at the actual sprint reviews that are going on and the demos that they do on those different sprint reviews. But I'm sure there's always a new mousetrap that's going to be coming along, but right now, the way I see it, it's really Agile playing really well with DevOps. You'll find some companies that's all they care about. I've got to get it developed, built, and put out there really quick. And even though there is an ALM story there, those people you're talking to probably, just that's not their bailiwick. That's not what they have to worry about. They're not so much concerned about where that demand's coming from. They've got it, and they've got to go with it as quick as they can. So, it's a little different, not to mix the two terms up, but I think, that might be actually one of the bigger changes coming down the pike, is how DevOps and ALM are going to play together. I think it's hard to say they can't play together. They're almost joined at the hip, really, but there may be different, definitions, different understandings of those two areas. Okay. Great software every 6 weeks. That's a good point on the what do you think screen here. But as far as downside to developing using Agile seems to be that customers don't know when to jump in. Well, I'm not sure the context of this statement, but for instance, with software change manager development, which is all done using Agile, well, what's called Agile Vision, now called CA Clarity Agile. It's almost in every 4-month session that they bring, well, whenever the sprint ends, so whether it's every 6 weeks or 2 months, and they'll bring in the customers to see if people want to, if they're part of that program, to look to jump in. So we really tell them when to jump in. Okay. Are we doing upgrades and releasing every 6 weeks? No, we're not. But you're going to see this accelerate, to become a little bit quicker. We develop agilely. We don't necessarily release that way. But nevertheless, there still is considerable value from, I think you get better quality because up front whether this thing has a problem working with the system that it's built against right away. And I think you can resolve things much quicker that way.
I've got another question that was here that is kind of related to that, in that they're seeing a lot of things. I mean, we're getting used to, on our iPhones and our iPads and whatever, to have slipstream updates. I mean, we're expecting them. We expect that people are going to have, you know, fast updates. When there's a problem, we're going to fix it fast and put it in, and we're going to seamlessly and quickly be able to update and not destroy everything we've done. And I think that's part of what the software as a service is doing as well. How do you think about those in terms of this ALM kind of a process also? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think absolutely ALM in that, you know, in that context will help the quality a great deal. Unless we're tuned into that demand, like what you said, you're getting these updates all the time. Unless you're really tuned into that demand and have a very you know, tight QA process around it, you can quickly put up that test environment. You don't have to build out a whole suite of servers to get that test environment. You can simulate it, put it up, test it. You know it's right, and you can put it out there. And that's where, you know, the ALM role comes in, I think, in a big way. That it can really tell you very quickly where you're at, what you can do, what you can't, what you can handle, and what you can forecast what you can put out there, because you know what your rate is, you know what your burn is, for that matter.
You obviously need to have a good feedback mechanism, right?
That's true. That is very true. And now there's feedback from the customer, which may be a little longer, you know, coming around the pike, but feedback from your testing community, feedback from, you know, the production control people, and from the business themselves, ALM will bring that to you because you're all connected at all times. So you can quickly see, you can quickly collaborate on what those changes are, and, you know, what is really, what's a big success and what's not such a success. Maybe something we want to think it through a little differently, and other things, let's push hard on it because it's working real well. So.
Okay, thanks. Brittany, could you check and see if there's any questions on the line, please?
At this time, if you'd like to ask a question, press star, then the number 1 on your telephone keypad. We'll pause for just a moment to compile the Q&A roster.
And Milt, while she's doing that, if you want to move to the next
yeah.
slide, then.
There we go.
I've got one more question that came in on the chat line. So, you know, it's kind of an interesting thing, but it is, do you see, as you look at this, are people going to trust the cloud to be the repository for their software, you know, through this process? I mean, one of those was a cloud-based platform as a service option, right?
I mean, and if it's a bank, financial institution, not likely, unless they're building their own internal private cloud, then I don't see why it's going to be any different. And that's really what a lot of organizations are doing anyways. They're virtualizing all of their platforms. They're making this available as a service, you know, to their users. So it's what sections, you know, it's what area do you need? By your role in the life cycle, what do you need to be looking at? What do you need to gather your information from? And I think that's what's the most key. So it's not likely that folks are going to want to put their code artifacts up into a public cloud. However, you know, I see a hybrid cloud as being that whole platform as a service offering. Now, it very well, and I'm sure you can do it today, that is available, you know, up in the cloud in terms of, you know, having a code repository up there. Technically, there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't do it. But, yeah, there is some security fear, I think, of putting that kind of information up in a public cloud environment. But
okay, thanks.
You bet.
Brittany, did we have any other questions come in on the line?
And there are no questions at this time.
Okay, so Milt, if you want to give us a summary and then pass it back and we'll wrap up. So.
Sure. So, you know, as I was saying, ALM is a quickly growing space. I mean, it's something that, and it is a space that CA can play very well in. We have, you know, many of the answers for ALM solutions today. And, you know, I think that it's one of those quick growth markets that hopefully we can, you know, concentrate on a little further in the coming year. So, but thanks for your time today, and like we say, let's roll on.
So next week we're going to be talking more about software and development, but it's really about DevOps specifically. And so we'll be talking about the DevOps definitions and technologies, and look forward to seeing you next week. Appreciate it, and Milt, thanks very much for putting this together. And until next week, good selling.